Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a warm welcome to QuickBooks Labs. QB Labs, a fortnightly podcast designed to be the place to learn all about the world of QuickBooks and other accounting software. Every 2 weeks, we hang around these microphones to talk about all the latest news, tips, tricks for QuickBooks Online. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Patrick, a chartered accountant, owner of an accounting firm called Boffix, a QuickBooks certified UK trainer with a fancy new logo in the corner up here, and also that QuickBooks chap on the YouTube. Join me, as always, is my co-host, the one and only Ash. How are you doing, Ash?
Fantastic, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, me, Ash Beetson, bookkeeper, accountant, software developer, jack of all trades, master of none. And I dabble on the old YouTube now and again when I get the time. Anyway, back over to you, Aaron.
Thank you. So we have a cracker installed for you today. And what we're going to do before we get on there is tell you all about how this works. So first of all, we are live to the world at our regular time of 4:30 p.m. UK time, usually every other Tuesday, but we're actually doing Wednesdays at the moment, seeing how that goes along, which is 10:30 a.m. Central Time. So if you listen to this back at a late time, then why not think about joining us live? That way you can get involved in the show and ask us anything using the chat box, just like we have in the chat at the moment. So we're going to make sure that you have time to answer your burning questions at the end. And I'm sure that will make sure that the chat as well keeps us honest as well. Furthermore, if you're new or if you are, start that one again. Furthermore, we are now live on podcasting services around the globe. So feel free to subscribe on the podcasting service of your choice. Ash, what hastily put together agenda have we got to today?
We have a couple of looks at some enhancements within the sort of receipt capture area. There's some banking news around Tide and some other bank updates that we can take a look at in QuickBooks. And then why not sell a bit of my own product on the airway while we're here? So NetTracker, we've got a little bit of news. We've had a few updates recently as well, so I'll give that a bit of a mention towards the end. And then again, any questions, anyone comes in with any questions, we'll happily answer them.
100%. And I'm looking forward to the news on NetTracker as well, because I know for a fact there's some pretty cool changes coming along. All right, let's start out then with some news as to some enhancement to our QuickBooks over in the UK. So while I'm talking, I'm just trying to get it up and running for you all. So what we've got is a few changes in the way that our receipt capture works and some enhancements that I think has actually made a big difference. We talk about it a lot in our recertification. So if you remember from last time we were on air, we were talking about how recertification and the advantages we've got from it. But we've actually found that there's some really good changes to the way that the accounts have come along, or at least there we are. That's all we can have. The way that the receipt captures come along, and want to just show you some of those options. So if I jump into the receipt capture area, hopefully you guys are remembering this and remember how this works. Just make it a little bit bigger for us all. But as you can see from here, this is our receipt capture area. Now, if you haven't been in here before, really straightforward. The easiest way to get data in here is to use your mobile phone, take a photo of a receipt, and that receipt will then get captured within QuickBooks. Really clever. It actually extracts the data for you and gets that data into QuickBooks Online. You don't just have to use your phone. You can upload from computer, so you can actually grab documents on your computer itself, or you can set a little forwarding email address and send information directly from your email account. So it's a really handy feature, and the idea is that the more data you throw at QuickBooks, the more data it can extract, and then it can start doing some wonderful things with it. One of the things, or what it's always been able to do since day one, should I say, is it's been able to extract the data just like we've got here. And it's then been able to read the data, bring in the information like the £17 here and the VAT and everything else for you, descriptions, and it can create an expense out of it. Or if it don't want to create an expense out of it, it can find a transaction that's already in QuickBooks for you, and it can match it and actually attach that photo of that transaction to the actual transaction itself. So if you've already got, and you've gone through your bank account statements and you've already added all your transactions there, and you want to add some proof of what those transactions are, this is a great little feature, because then you can just take photos of it like we've got here. This Yo Sushi transaction's already in QuickBooks. All it's going to do then is add this photo to it, giving you some proof, giving you some ideas of what's in there. That's brilliant. And that's how it's been for a long, long time. But they've made some subtle changes to it. One of those subtle changes that you may not know is you can now create a bill. Really handy. So not just an expense, but you can create a bill as well. But then I think this is a bit of a game changer in that if I jump in my banking screen and I look through my banking area itself, I'm just going to make it a bit bigger so it's not as crowded there. You'll notice here that we have this Costco transaction just here. And this Costco transaction now has a new little green bar here saying 1 receipt found. And if I just click into it and look at a little bit more detail, you can see that basically it's still ready for me to input my information. But now we've found a receipt that matches a transaction and attached it for you. So if I click on here, I can see, I'm just loading it now, and if I click on it, it'll actually open it up. But I can actually see that exact transaction. So if I had any questions about what this transaction relates to, maybe I need to split it, maybe I need to figure out what the VAT rate's going to be, or maybe I just wasn't sure what was actually bought from Costco in the first place, then that receipt is going to be there for me to have a look at and view really, really easily. And all you have to do is make sure that data is put into QuickBooks. QuickBooks is then going to go through your bank statement, find that transaction for you, and put it in there. What do you think to that, Ash?
I think that's great, that is, Aaron, because quite often people will just take their photos, they'll just dump loads of information in there, and especially small business owners, if they've taken the picture and they can ignore it, because let's face it, they're not likely to be reviewing their bank account every single day. But hopefully, if they just keep on top of taking the pictures, even if they don't look at it for 3 months and they look at the bank feed, then hopefully, as they're going through, it will then start going, oh, I can see you've got a receipt for that. Oh, I can see you've got a receipt for that. And they don't have to remember what they have been doing in the, 6 months ago. Oh, what did I buy from that particular shop? They've got that instant reminder, haven't they? It's like, oh yeah, I remember now. It was, it wasn't actually anything for my business. It was a packet of crisps, and I took the wife out for a meal. But I'll try and put it through as entertainment or whatever it might be.
Yeah, exactly right. It's so clever, isn't it? And I don't know if you saw on my channel, I did a video basically comparing auto entry to receipt capture and just like seeing what the differences are and all that sort of stuff. And this is where, yes, auto entry, receipt bank, or Dex as it's called now, and the other ones are out there, can do this functionality. You can take a photo of it, you can get that information into QuickBooks and get the information there. But because they don't have that tight integration that obviously QuickBooks can have, because they've built the software themselves, they know exactly how it works, they're able to do little things like this, which generally I think is a massive game changer. It's that, that idea that, as you said, 3 months down the line, you can actually think about what that transaction is. Or if you've got someone else doing your books for you, if you are outsourcing those books to someone else, taking those photos as you go along, and just like, I've gone to the shop, I've taken a photo of it, I forgot about it. They might, the next day they might go and, look and putting that transaction onto the system for you. They're going to know exactly what that transaction is because you've provided them all the details. Whereas before it used to be, well, let's write an email about how that you bought this transaction on the 24th of, on the 10th or whatever it's going to be, £24.15, and it was for this, it was at Costco, and you'd have to pour that information in an email and send it off to them, wouldn't you? But now obviously you've got such a quicker way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main bit of education here is going to be for accountants really is, okay, just give your clients a tiny bit of training on the mobile phone if they haven't had it any yet. And this, it's only how long does it take to take a picture? Seconds. So it's not a massive thing. Download the app on your phone, and then take a picture with the snap receipt, and that's all the client probably will have to ever do. but it could then save a whole lot of pain for everyone concerned. The accountant trying to chase the client digging around the back of the van for all the receipts that they can't find.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think also, like, it just gives them, once you've kind of seen the benefit of taking a photo, like you're saying there, it gives clients that emphasis of going, oh, this is really easy. So let's spend a little bit of time setting up rules in their email account to forward it using that option I showed you before about using the forwarding email option here. Let's get into a routine where we'll upload a load of documents every now and again. And the more kind of benefits you give to a client to using that technology, the more they're going to use it, isn't it? So yeah, it's really it. When receipt capture first came, I think a lot of people were a bit like, where's the place for it? It's great that it's in the system, but receipt capture, auto entry and all that already do this. What can it do? And I think now it's starting to show what it can do differently and taking its own direction, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it started off very basic, and like a lot of apps, they start off basic, see what works, what might need a bit of a tweak, and then just give it a little bit more. They know that those two sections work, and then I can only imagine now that, as things start to work and things work really well, then extra little bits will get added in over time.
Definitely, 100%. And I only have one small little criticism of it, and this is something that hopefully, as Ash was saying there, we'll get updates through from time. And in fairness, it's already been updated slightly. But forwarding from email, you get to pick a email account here, so you could put whatever you want at QuickBooksDocs.com. So you could have QB Labs, for example. But the one thing is that you have to send it from the email address that you're logged in with here. So whatever your user account email address is, that's the email address you have to send it from. And that can cause a little bit of issues from time to time, because say from an accountant, we might not necessarily have our email address as the account that's actually added as the user. So that it's not a complete game changer, but it is kind of one of those things where it'd be nice if we could just send it from any type of email address, so as an accountant we can just get the information, send it over. At the moment we can't, so we have to use drag and drop at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, because I know some when I was heavily involved with other clients, and I used to set them up with auto entry. I would sort of say, well, ask your client or ask your supplier to now send their bills to this address, because I would set up a designated address in auto entry to say, whatever it is, business name at, and they could give any one of their suppliers that email address, and it could, so it could come from anybody. They don't have to have an auto entry, a QuickBooks account. It just goes from that email straight in, and that's the extra little step we need in there, that it can come from literally anybody.
Yeah, you're right. And it's one of those things. As an accounting firm, I think we're better than most in terms of our kind of progress in dealing with that data. But I think there's an opportunity there, I think, for an app to come along that's going to make that so much easier. Because for us as an accounting firm, we just want to give our clients the ability to, here's their email address they send it to. So, ash@bofix.com, for example. And then you send that information to there, and then we get to control where that goes to. So maybe we want it to go to QuickBooks, maybe we want it to go to auto entry, whatever it's going to be. And at the moment, we've kind of put together a solution that kind of works and it does its job. But I think there's a way there I think that's going to be something that's going to be tackled in the next couple of years in terms of opportunity to make that better for people. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we want to control that data flow, and we want to make sure that data flow is coming through. Awesome. Okay, so that's all about the banking or the receipt capture, and it leads quite nicely onto our next bit, because part and parcel of one of the issues that clients are having. In fact, I'll just quickly show it again, show what I'm talking about here. But on the banking screen, when you go to the link account at the top here, you have the option to choose what bank account you've got. And one of the biggest criticisms, I suppose, is the best words, or at least frustrations, I suppose, is the even better word, is that you have this requirement by law, by legislation, that you have to have the connection created every 90 days. So, and that's not Intuit's doing, that's not Xero's doing, that's none of the kind of bookkeeping solutions. That's open banking legislation. So every 90 days, doesn't matter what sort of software you've got, but they've got to be connected and then reconnected and reconnected and reconnected. And again, part of the recertification part that we were talking about with me and Ash have been doing lately is talking about how that's been made easier than ever before, because you can do it on your bank account, you do it on your mobile phone, and you can connect it quicker and easier than ever before, but it's still that 90 days. And it kind of gave me some bit of a reason to have some research into kind of what's happening in that world. And it's really interesting because Tide, that's one of the kind of challenger banks out there, and one that we've been doing a lot of work with at Bofix, they've actually accused the other banks, so kind of your traditional banks, of dragging their feet when it comes to open banking. And that's why we've still got these 90-day rules. That's why those sort of things are still in place, because the whole point of open banking is to make it so it's a much more modern connection and modern way. Because if you think about how it used to be, it was a bit of a Wild West, wasn't it? They were allowed to connect to banks however they wanted to, and they could make any connection possible. But the idea of open banking is that any piece of software out there, if you want to connect to a bank account, you have to abide by these rules, and you have to go through this particular area, and you have to, do it this way. It's just really interesting that Tide at the moment are basically accusing the rest of them of dragging their feet and causing issues, because those other banking systems like your NatWest and your HSBCs and your Barclays are all based on old archaic solutions, aren't they? So it's going to take time to get over there. I know one of the criticisms people have got is that pre-open banking, you could connect any type of bank account you want. Post open banking, you're not allowed to connect, say, your savings account or your credit card account or whatever it was. And over time, they've got better, but that's how it definitely was at the beginning. And it's just interesting that Tide have got this whole idea now that they're basically firing these shots at the bigger organization, saying, the longer you drag your feet, the more you take to get yourself kind of into it and getting into the legislation and getting everything up and running, the longer these 90-day rules and things like that are going to stay around. So I think the positive is that 90-day rule seems like it's it's a temporary measure by the sounds of it. It seems like it's something that there's room for negotiations, if you know what I mean. But it's also interesting that Tide and everyone else are kind of shooting these guns off and kind of, basically trying to force them to move on. What do you think to all that?
It was interesting you say that. I mean, I thought that perhaps the 90-day rule was more a security measure, so that we can, you want to make sure that your bank account is connected to, a piece of software, in a nice, safe and secure manner. And if you forget about it for any reason, or you stop using that accountancy software, then it's not going to be still looking at your bank data. So I guess if, let's say, a business owner moves accountants, but that firm still had a link to that bank account in their QuickBooks file that they seem to have ownership of, then that business owner probably doesn't want his bank data still pinging over there, and it wouldn't do after 90 days because it would just stop. So I would sort of think, well, would you want an indefinite connection, especially if you might have a bookkeeper or accountant that just happens to be looking at it? So that would be my sort of worry a little bit if the banks were going to say, oh, well, you can connect and it'll just be a permanent connection. I'd be surprised if that would happen. For some people it would be great, but or maybe at least, because it can be a bit of a pain, and I've done this a few times recently, having to do the reconnect thing. If just it was quicker, because that would be it. Because sometimes you have to go through a lot. It seems like a lot of hoops to reconnect your bank account. You know, you go through one screen and then another one, and it can vary slightly from bank to bank. So if they were all pretty uniform, and it was a case of just connect your bank account, put in your PIN number or whatever it is, and it would literally take, 15 seconds. Oh, that's it. I just need to put in my whatever, job done. Happy days. And that's what it should be. It shouldn't be click this, click this, click this, click this. It should just be almost, a PIN number, or scanning with a Q code or something or other with your phone, so that it's literally happens in an instant. So I think you would still need the 90 days, but it just needs to be a heck of a lot quicker than what it is now. That'd be nice.
I think that's a great shout there. And from what I could tell from that whole extending the 90 days, I think you're right, they'll never do it to indefinitely. I think it'll always be a timed event. But the way they were kind of talking about it was, I think they have like a tiered approach. It'll be like the most trusted software out there, who fall by all the really strict criteria, will get an extended time frame, and then your less trusted software, if you like, will still have the 90 days or however it's going to be. So I think that's how they want to tackle it, and it's all about just trying to make it so that it's not prohibitive, because at the moment, like you've said, spending all that time to reconnect your bank is a nightmare for some clients. 90 days turns up and it's like, again, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure I only did this last week and now you're asking me to connect it again. So it's one of those. I've got two bits on that I found really interesting, though. Is I've recently had to move from a business point of view from NatWest to Starling, and you're right, like NatWest was never a bad connection compared to historically, like HSBC was probably and Barclays probably the worst two, weren't they, where you had to have the two-factor authentication to go with it, and there was all those hoops you had to jump through to make it work. Whereas NatWest, it was still, though, you had to type in a password and then type in another password, then get an authentication key and type that password in, and like you said, there was all these steps you had to get to make it work. Whereas Starling, they basically say to yourself, best experience it on the mobile. You go on the app on QuickBooks, you click on authenticate, it takes you to Starling, it says, are you happy? It does the Face ID and all that lot. Are you happy to approve? You press OK, done. And that's the connection done. Like, I was saying, yeah, slick, smooth, works. And also with Starling now prompt me. So QuickBooks aren't prompting me, it's Starling prompting me saying, just to let you know, 90 days is up in a few days. Would you like to reconnect? And I can reconnect from the Starling app from there. So, yeah, there's those sort of things. And I was talking to another bookkeeping solution firm the other day, and they were saying to me that, like, for them, their way of getting over the 90-day rule, or their most successful way, is just a simple push notification to the phone. So again, they get a phone notification come up, or the customer will, saying your 90 days is due. Click here and it'll take you to the bit to go there. So I think software can help to a point, but it's the banks that need to step up on. I think this is what Tide is talking about, isn't it? That's their whole dragging the feet, where if it can be that easy, that it is just a case of pressing a button, re-certify, you're up and running again, then I think, that's going to be better for everyone. And if all the banks followed suit and had that kind of same technology in place, I think we'd be in a much, much better way of doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the banks can't now turn around and say, oh, this isn't possible. Because when you have one bank account that, literally, like you've just said, is able to, reauthorize the connection in a few seconds, there's absolutely no reason why these larger banks that have plenty of pots of money in the bank and have the funds available to invest in the updates to get it done. So it's just probably a little bit of laziness, and they think they're a little bit more special than everybody else. They think, oh, we've been around a few years. We don't need to worry about updating our connections to our software providers just yet. And I think that's just how it works. It's sort of brushed to the side as a not that important.
I think you're absolutely spot on there. And, it's frustrating, isn't it? But I suppose the one thing we've got to remember is it's so much better than it was pre the banks connecting to software, I suppose. Is that the only bit of thing we can take away from this? It's better than
absolutely. I suppose we must be thankful for small mercies. But as we were just chatting, I was sort of thinking about the 90-day thing. And it could be that perhaps that and similar with other software, that if you're a regular user and you've got that constant connection, it will think, I can see you're looking at this every single day, so it keeps the connection in place. But if you're inactive and you're not looking after your accounts properly, they will think, you don't need this connection. You've not actually used it for 3 months, so we'll just switch it off.
That's a fair trade, isn't it? That's how it goes down. I think that would work brilliantly. Yeah.
Do you think I should be an advisor to the banks?
Get yourself on the open banking board.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that'll be interesting though is when QuickBooks Bank gets announced, and how much I don't know how it's going to work. Do you have to? Are we going to have to do a 90-day reconnection to that? I mean, because it is supposed to be all in browser, isn't it? So yeah, I don't know.
Well, if there is a connection, it should be instant, Aaron.
I
should be putting a complaint in or clicking on the feedback button.
You press the button, it says right, the code's been sent through the post. Please allow 14 days for it to come along. Yeah. Let's hope that's not the case. All right, brilliant. The next bit that I wanted to bring in was just seeing some adjustments or some changes that have happened over in the US QuickBooks land. And the reason I want to bring this in is because it's always good to keep an eye on what's happening over there, because basically what tends to happen is, although we found that it could be the other way around, but what tends to happen is we get the option, or USA gets the option first, and then we get to see how that transpires from our side. So up on screen now is an American version. And one of the first things I want to show you is that we talked about this before, and we're quite excited about this one, aren't we, Ash, in terms of what this means and how this could actually affect us. But it seems to be live now, and I'm not, unfortunately, I've had a chance to play around with it, see what it's like. But it's interesting that both Amazon Business, which we knew about, and also Square now has its own little area called app transactions at the top. And if it works as the way we were told it was going to work, is that we basically connect our accounts to here, and then that becomes part of that app ecosystem and starts bringing that information in, but on a much more integrated process. So, yeah, what do you think to this one, Ash?
I think this is fantastic. I mean, I'd be really interested to know how the Amazon Business connection will work. Unfortunately, I don't have an Amazon account anymore, but a few years ago, I did help somebody that had an Amazon account, and it was I've got a bit of an echo in the background.
Was that me? Yeah, sorry.
It was a really painful process to log in to Amazon and try to literally get any information out of it. I couldn't find anything half of the time. So if we were able to literally get that connection in and bring in, what our sales are, etc., just through a connection, then all the better. And the same for Square, really.
Yeah, because you think about Amazon, like what people buy everything from Amazon now, don't they? Like, it's got to be that one place where it literally could be any category on your thing. So, yeah, being able to bring that in, and the way it showed us was all about the Amazon Business, and it was kind of like, it was a bit like a bank account. It was bringing the information, it was bringing the PDF attachments as well. So, there's definitely going to be some huge benefits for bringing that information in. It's interesting they've chosen Square. I assume this is because it's kind of there's going to be different agreements between Square and different agreements between UK. So it's interesting, isn't it, how they've gone for Square over there, which I personally I think is a bigger platform, so it makes sense for them. But I wonder if that means over here we'll see PayPal and Zettel as the agreement. You know, is a possibility.
Yeah,
Or give the options as well.
Yeah, I think so, Aaron. And I would, you know, I'm not a gambling man, but you know, I would say that that's probably just the start. You know, and you know, also obviously in the US, but I would imagine we're going to start with that. You'll see other little boxes appear, and it'll be the same eventually over here.
Yeah, Charlie's put a great comment in. Yeah, that's exactly what it does. So the whole idea is that fetch process. So it's automatically going to bring those transactions in. Well, that's what we were told it was going to do in one of the QuickBooks Connect. So I'll get a plate. The problem I have is it's only at the moment from Amazon Business USA account. So that's why I haven't been able to test it. But I will as soon as I get my hands on an Amazon Business USA account, I will go and test that and report back on the next one, because I think I generally do think it's it'll be a really great way of getting in. And just like James says here, and like you've said about those new options about bringing other bits there, yeah, right, Etsy, eBay, those sort of things. If we can get them in as well, more the better, isn't it? I know OneSAS is going to be probably their main focus because they've only just bought that as a solution. But yeah, let's get as many of these connections as possible.
Nice, yeah. I was literally when you mentioned OneSAS, because I know that Intuit just purchased that. Was it the beginning of this year or end of last year? I can't remember. But yeah, because there's lots of that e-commerce within there, isn't there? And then that's going to just bring it all through.
But I suppose the only downside of that is it only brings the transaction in. Not like Charlie was saying, not that fetch idea where if you bring in not just the transaction, but the PDF and all the bits that come with it. So, yes, I will report back when I've got more info on that one. The other one, a subtle change, but I thought was really interesting, is if you look at this view here, this is very similar to our view, exactly the same as what you'd expect to see. But if I use the company cog and you switch to business view, now in the UK, switch to business view does absolutely nothing really, apart from changing a few namings, doesn't it? The banking over here becomes transactions, is it? Something like that. And I think that's all it does from memory. But if I switch to business view now, in the American side, they have this really subtle change here, and I think it works really well. I think it looks to me, and when I first saw this, I actually thought that the client was in QuickBooks Self-Employed at first glance. I was like, oh, are they in the wrong one at this point? But actually, when you look at it, it does make a lot of sense, and it's all about this confirm and this review status, and it's all about, well, if they figure out that transaction's probably right, it's going to give you the chance to confirm, and you can see your information here and the fact there's a rule applied. But if not, you've got the option to review here, and then you can say and see the same information. So it's a subtle change, but I like that, because one of the biggest problems we still have is the fact that we really struggle, or I certainly found this, is that a lot of people still struggle with that concept that when the transactions on the for review element, they're not in QuickBooks. And it's that trying to force them to get that information into QuickBooks. It's like, you need to clear these transactions. You need to get these transactions off for review and into categorize. And I think here, having this confirm button to say, yes, I'm happy with that, let's move on, hopefully will push more people to get that bit done. The one thing I don't like, though, is at the top here, you lose that what the bank balance is and what the QuickBooks balance is. So that bit scares me if that disappears. If I go back to what we're used to, oh, it is. We get to see both, as you can see, but when they see it, they only get to see the one. And by the looks of it, it's the QuickBooks balance there as well. So we drink to those changes, Ash.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, Aaron, because I looked at that and I thought, now if that is the actual live bank balance,
is it live?
I wouldn't have too much of an issue with that, because I'm thinking So if I think of it as a business owner's point of view,
You're right. Yeah, bank balance. Sorry.
they can get pretty confused. They think, oh, well, I've got two balances on here and I don't understand. The business owner, he doesn't really need to know, quite often. Don't confuse them with bank balances, bank reconciliation. That's your bank balance that's coming through, and that's what that's per your bank account. That's all you need to worry about for now, and I think it looks nice and slick and clean and tidy on there. The other bits there, so yeah, I quite like it. Just confirm that you're happy, or review if you need to make a change. Nice, easy, that a business owner should be able to understand, I think.
Yeah, and without like giving, making sure we don't break any NDAs or anything like that, we know that they are putting some effort into revamping this banking screen again. Like it's a focus of theirs, which is great. And if there's one area that you want to have continual focus on and continual development on, you want it to be the banking screen, don't you? Because it's the most important place. So we know changes are coming, but I mean, I'm definitely not seeing these sort of changes on its way. But it's interesting that the kind of concept of trying to make it easier, trying to make it simpler and that's what they're obviously ultimately trying to do. But yeah, maybe I'm just so used to how it was before. This bit's jarring to me. This bit I absolutely love, but yeah. We'll kind of have to see. But if we still contain this option here and being able to switch between them, then as accountants, we're going to get the best of both worlds, aren't we? So yeah, it could work in our favor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
All right, okay. There was a couple more that I wanted to bring in. Which one were they? Oh, just a really quick one. Over on their cash flow area, they've got this really fancy tool here for this overview section. So the whole idea of the overview section is kind of condensing that information to more readable, palatable area. So I absolutely love this. I think this needs to get to the UK ASAP, really, because I think this is a great view here. And from the planning section, it's exactly the same, but it just gives this wonderful view here where you can start seeing where things are starting to come in. And it's not just that one long list of information that we're dealing with at the moment. We've actually got some information there that we can start trying to think about and do it. And actually, just one other thing that the Americans have got in there is they've started to be much more clever at sales forecasting by the looks of it, because certainly with all the ones I've been looking at, we don't ever get a sales forecast for anyone who's doing things like eBay or your standard retail. Those sort of people aren't normally getting a sales forecast. It's normally very dependent on what's coming in that bank account that's coming on a regular basis. So if you had like subscription based clients, it's pretty good at trying to estimate what your subscription would be, what your monthly income is going to be. But when it was ones like this, it's interesting that they've actually started to find ways to bring it in, which they definitely, they're definitely aiming to do, aren't they? So that's a good thing.
Oh, excellent. So if you've got a company that enters generally a lot of sales receipts, that fact is, at the moment in the UK, it's not always picking up what your future sales receipt will be, because we're only looking at open invoices, unpaid invoices. But yeah, so if they're actually going to start looking at forecasting and predicting what the sales could be, that could be pretty useful.
Definitely. And I see here, get or send money as well. Send or pay a bill. So that's quite interesting. That's on there. So it's kind of trying to bring this in as one area for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then just because we've got a chance to see it here and have a look at it, but workflows is in on the not workflows, I meant templates, didn't I? My workflows, that's what I was after. So workflows is here. Oh no, tasks is what I wanted to show you. So tasks is a new feature, but at the moment it's just on the advanced version of QuickBooks USA. But I think this could be something that could be quite useful on more and more clients. And the idea of setting up automated tasks And this is where you can get things like invoice approval. Finally, it's using that workflows mainframe of kind of setting up that if you do this, do that. But it's the idea that we can kind of get this all up there and has like a task section there. So, you know, fingers crossed we get that sooner rather than later. Hasn't it been? You would have thought that'd be something that would come up on maybe one of the future quarterly blog posts and put up on there. So we can't be far away from our next one, can we, in terms of bringing that in, our summer one, if you like, because we're still in the spring one. So, yeah, you know, that'd be great if that was there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really neat feature for the larger, business. So, a firm I still help regularly, telecoms company, they've got quite a few employees. They need these processes, because so at the moment, they raise purchase orders and so on and so on. So the purchase order goes through and it gets mapped, through auto entry at the moment. But we really need that process of being able to, maybe someone raises a purchase order, someone approves the purchase order, then a bill comes through and it gets matched, and then you approve the fact that that bill is okay, and you approve, just approve that you can pay the bill. So at the minute, it's a case of, you go in there and you download a file and then someone into Excel, and somebody just looks at it and says, yeah, that's okay, you can do that. But if it's all in the, a place where someone can just log in and, tick what can be done and what can't be done, all good.
Yeah, exactly right. And I suppose you're right, it is more for the bigger firms, isn't it? And that's probably why it's always going to be in the advance. Yeah, I just think that it'd be nice to have some way of doing that in the smaller ones, but good. Cool. All right. I think that's enough about what's happening over in America. It was interesting as well that we were looking beforehand, weren't we, that there's actually some features that we have in Britain, in the UK, that America doesn't have, like import features and stuff. But yeah, it's all good. Cool. Ash, do you want to talk us through some changes in NetTracker?
Yeah, let me just share my screen. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm not going to go through the whole NetTracker demo because, frankly, I don't have time. That would be another hour. But I just want to sort of, show you some basic updates that we've got recently. First of all, now I'm actually not in a live NetTracker area at the moment. I'm in a testing area because it's complete, but we've just not released it live to the world yet. But if I go to create a new company, what we have in here, so we don't even have the proper Sage button yet. But so we can connect to QuickBooks, we can connect to Xero, we can also connect to Sage Cloud, and get everything through that we need to, produce a fixed asset register as we need to. I'm going to come back to my company. So here, these are 3 files that I've actually connected to Sage. So we don't have the Sage logo on the left yet. But some other little updates I just want to, make people aware of, really. So if I were to just view my asset register, so we've made a few changes within our user interface. One of them, is that you've got the ability of just changing what columns are on screen, because, there's a lot of information there, and if you don't need it all, you can get rid of it for simplicity. Some extra really handy ones here is the fact that if you are selling an asset, then, NetTracker calculates what that gain or loss is on the disposal. So when you come to do your year-end accounts, and you'll be able to download this into Excel if you wanted to, you've got an easier reconciliation now between the profit and loss, which is not just containing your depreciation during the year, but it's also containing gains and losses on asset disposals. So that should make that whole area a bit easier. We've got locations. That a location here at the moment is just simply a text field, so it's not actually linking to a location in QuickBooks, but we can, and we have done for some time. If I, no, actually this is a Sage file anyway, but I would, in a QuickBooks file, be able to turn on locations in my settings classes in my settings, and we can split all the depreciation journals by class very easily. A couple of other things that have changed sort of this year. So we've got the depreciation rule that we have. We can change that at any time. So if I decide that actually it shouldn't have been over 5 years, I could edit that and just change that depreciation rule at any time. It's not fixed in stone. So it's a very quick, easy change. Now, what we've also got, and I'm sort of wrapping it up because I'm just going through these sort of quick updates, is if I come to out here, so we've also got this instant reconciliation between the balance sheet and the asset register. So those should always be the same. If I take a look at my fixed asset, my forecast, I can download that forecast into Excel. So if I'm trying to do a profit and loss forecast, a budget, and I want to look at what my total depreciation is by asset group, by class, if I'm using those, then I can just dump that into a spreadsheet. I can sort it by, actually I'll just, as if I can dump that in there now, and open this up so you get an idea of what this looks like. It's just coming up. There we go. So I've not got much in here. So it just puts the asset group name in. If you had classes or locations in use, then you'd be able to then subtotal it, group it to your heart's content, and then you'll have the values for every month moving forward. So what do you think to that on that one, Aaron?
Yeah, I love it. I love the changes. I think, the little things like the idea that you can start downloading your transactions and trying to get that sort of thing in. I think that's the important bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, now you've said it, it seems obvious and it seems like a thing, but I can only imagine how much time and things it gets getting in there. But it is important, isn't it? Being able to reconcile it back and have it look. And for us, we can use it as like sending it to our clients so that they can tick it off for you and they can kind of see it and put them sort of things in. So
yeah, absolutely. And you're able to, and has always been the case, you're able to actually invite your client to look at the asset register themselves. So there's no limits on users. So you invite the client, they can look at their own asset register, they can choose, they can mark themselves that an asset needs to be disposed or they sold it. So that can be done pretty easily. One other thing, I suppose, I don't know if I should mention it or not, but why not? How would you find, let's say, in my assets here, if there was a little icon there that said loans next door to it?
I like it. I see where you're going there. Yeah.
Then, especially, so it doesn't have to be a loan for the asset, but if you've got quite often, large company bought a new piece of equipment, they've got it on HP, we'll now fire that interest into the P&L every month and reconcile it back automatically. So should put everything in. That's what we're planning to do. Very, very early stages, but we are hoping to bring that in a little while. So literally just at the very beginning of the planning stages, but we are looking at that to simplify your loans on your assets as well. So that should speed up everything. If I could speed something up and simplify it, believe me, I will. So that's a little bit of news. I'll stop sharing on that one now.
I know it was a while ago as well, but you've also got the ability to create accounts now, haven't you, in terms of expense accounts?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, if I just went to my asset groups and mapping, so you've got whatever asset group you want to create and manage them. So when you are, especially if you're setting this up from scratch, if you've got your different sections for your additions, etc. But if you didn't have the account in place and you needed it, you just choose new, and then it just creates a new chart of account category for you automatically, gives it its own sort of special net tracker name, so you can just edit the name afterwards, back in Sage, back in QuickBooks, back in Xero, whatever you are using.
Amazing. Yeah, because that to me was one of the big game changers, because that was it's so frustrating when you first take up a client and you have to go through setting up all of the account codes and everything else. I know you can import them into QuickBooks, but yeah, just being able to create them there. And
Yeah, definitely.
it's even harder on Xero and Sage and stuff. So yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what I'm going to try and plan to do next, but it's not quite as simple, is that so some business owners will have a different category so for their additions that what they use for disposals, and others will actually use the same one. So whatever they buy, when they dispose of it, they just want it credited to the same account. And well, in fact, we can do that. So sorry, I've sort of contradicted myself there. It is possible. So if I wanted to use, let's say, a different account, so I could use exactly the same account for additions now as what I could for disposal. So before, we were very strict and we said, no, if you dispose of something, it's got to go to a completely different account. But if you have a really simple accounting structure, whatever is the additions account, the disposal account could be the same. The only thing that we do insist is different is that each group does actually has to have its own separate additions account. So I could just have one called assets, because we're trying to detect those asset purchases automatically and put them into the right group. So if we just had one, we'd have no idea what group it needs to go to. But that's it really. But otherwise, you could use all. And then if you have a very simple accounting structure, then you wouldn't use the year-end journals to adjust your accumulated balances, because you're just keeping everything in one pot basically.
Nice one. Nice one.
All right, I'll close that down.
Top work. No, I like it. I like the changes that are there, and looking forward to those possible extra features as well with the loans. I think that's the right direction, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Cool. Right. Well, with that, somehow we've done it again, and we've got ourselves to the hour. It's amazing, really, when you think about how in the background we spend all this time putting that what you call it together, and we've managed to get it done that hour each and every time. So that's great news. Seeing there's a couple of comments and questions coming in, but what we'll do is we'll make sure we bring them in for next time. So don't worry, we won't forget about them. If you do have any questions at all, though, don't forget to go through and put there. So yeah, basically, if you're listening via the podcast, don't forget to follow us on Facebook so you can join us live on any future episodes. Which reminds me, Ash, when are we back?
We are back, same time, 2 weeks, but on the 2nd of June. So that'll be Wednesday, 2nd of June, same time, 4:30 p.m. And as Aaron said, if you've got any questions, you can always pop the question through on the Facebook page, and then we can raise it. We can make a note and we can raise it as a topic on the next episode.
Definitely. Also, don't. One of the things we are thinking to do, and it could be worthwhile if people can let us know comments wise what they think. But we're thinking of maybe changing the name, maybe drop the QBO. So yeah, if that seems like something that you would oppose to or not, then do let us know. But with that, I think we are pretty much it there, Nash. So thank you very much. You got any videos or anything planned for this week? Is there anything we should be looking out for?
Not at the moment. I've got quite a bit on different work-wise at the moment. So I've got my head down, and obviously I've got more testing to do. Sage integration is finished, but I still like to keep testing it to make sure that someone else doesn't go on there and all of a sudden breaks it. It should be me that breaks it first. But at the moment, no videos. How about you? You've got anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, we've got some big ones now. So we're looking to bring. Remember Rachel, who's come on a couple of times here. We're doing a Xero versus QuickBooks challenge. So we have got some questions and some tasks to do, and obviously her being a Xero fangirl and me quite liking QuickBooks, we thought we would see which one comes out on top, so which one can complete the challenges first. So that's really an interesting little video.
Yeah. It may be interesting at some point to actually have a look at the Sage accounting one as well, because that has changed. I've always, I'll put my hand up, and in the past I've not been a huge Sage fan, but now as an app developer we try to be completely agnostic and fair and look at different platforms. Having now integrated with QuickBooks, integrated with Xero, and now Sage. At the moment, the Sage has been the simplest one to integrate. We've picked up all these things along the way. We found what's worked, and but when I was learning how to, because I've never used Xero before until we integrated, and I've never used the new sort of Sage accounting cloud package until we integrated. I found the Sage easier to use than the Xero.
Oh, so you're saying we should be looking at freeway?
So I'm sure it may not have all of the functionality and bells and whistles and the apps connection that Xero does.
Yeah.
But from a fairly basic business owner point of view,
it ticks the boxes.
It does what it needs to, and the reporting might be better than Xero's.
Yeah.
I should look to go and hide, and all the Xero fans start stoning me. I should probably just change my identity.
Change your identity on it. Well, if anyone out there is a Sage, well, I suppose super user, then do get in touch, because that could be. I think Ash might be onto something there. And Charlie, just so you know, we're filming it a week tomorrow, so look out for it for a week after on the Bofix Tax Tip channel. So there we are. We've even got an editor and everything on that one, so looking forward to that. Should be good. Cool. Well, with that then, Ash, it is goodbye from me. Thank you as always for coming along with this and talking QuickBooks for the last hour or so.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. It's been a pleasure, and thanks Charlie and James and the rest for joining us.
Definitely. And remember, if you want to join us next week, it's 2 weeks time, 4:30 p.m. We'll see you then. And I'm stalling here because I'm trying to find the outro. Cheers, everyone. Bye now.
Bye.